All right, welcome to what we are going to call episode 36 of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your host, Jordan Goldstein, former sport historian, philosopher, sociology. I lived at a university at one point in my life. I was telling this to my kids yesterday as we toured around a university, and things get in the way and we just don't do that teaching anymore. We are now in life coaching, fitness coaching, endurance training coaching, tribal prof, way better and cooler than tenured prof, anyways. Um, and I'm very excited today to welcome a fellow runner, a fellow creative enthusiast, a fellow intellectual academic to the podcast, Mr. Scott Parker. And he's written this incredible book, which he was kind and gracious enough to send me, How to Run, a DIY guide for romantics. And I'm just going to let Scott introduce himself, and then him and I are going to get right into the romanticism of running.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. You're probably right, first of all, about it being cooler what you're doing now, but here I am. If you look around, this is my office. I'm at a university. I'm still teaching creative writing. And yeah, so I'm doing that. I've been writing about running in my own work for many years. I've have some previous publications. I'm doing a review column now of other running books for Sport Literate. But yeah, this is the new one. I've got a copy too, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Shameless plug. Go get the book. Pre-order it. Go get it. It is worth it.
Yeah, next
100
month comes out, but pre-order now.
pre-order now. Pre-order now. We got to support the good ones, team. This is a good one. This is a real good one. And if you like listening, this is an amazing read. And I'm gonna just plug it about 50 more times during this podcast that everybody should go and buy and support Scott's work. I was reading your book yesterday in a coffee shop, and I was making some notes, and yeah, there were maybe the first question I'd like to ask is, why write this book? Why write a book for romantics who should learn how to run, or runners who should learn how to become romantics?
Yeah, I didn't mean to write this book. It's just one of those things. Uh, I think I'm one of these people where a lot of my writing kind of comes out of my running, whether I'm writing about running or writing about something else. So I will very often, be out running, and I think there's something special about running in part because it's a place where I'm not plugged into anything, and those places are becoming rarer and rarer. I don't have headphones or carry a phone or anything. So I'm free. And I think there's something about being in that state of mind that invites creativity, even if you don't make it a formal invitation. It just shows up sometimes. So very often running is generative for me as a writer, and then as often as not, that what gets generated is running related. And so I'll come back after a run. I'll have some kind of idea, and I'll spend some time with it, and then enough years go by and these things start to accumulate, and then all of a sudden I just find myself saying, hey, I wonder if it's time to put some of these things together and see if there's a book here. In this particular case, it's actually, so there's a title essay called How to Run, and it's once I wrote that one and I felt like, hey, I think this is a cool title, that I decided to go for it. And if it's not obvious, I should say that the title How to Run is somewhat tongue in cheek, in the sense that it's very much not a book where I have anything to teach anyone about running. I know what I know from experience, but I don't have a training plan. I don't have, an approach. Sorry, is that too noisy? Should I close the window? Yeah. I think someone's mowing the lawn out there.
Sure sign
Um,
of spring is the mowers get fired up.
Uh, yeah, so the how to is really like how to how to do it in this way that I have sort of developed for myself over many years, which is to say, with attention on the subjective side of the practice. Or, I'm very, interested in how running makes the quality of my life better, more than I'm interested in how can I get better at running. You know, that's a nice side effect for me. And I don't I don't disown the fact that the better I'm running, the more I tend to like it. Uh, I'm not totally blinded in my romanticism, but I am a bit of a romantic when it comes to this sport.
I love that. And there's a lot of things that you say that resonate true with my approach to what I would call like the spirit of sports, or tuning people more into the spirituality or the quality of exercise or sports that are more of a spiritual practice than simply just like a physical practice. And when we're thinking about athletics, the body goes no matter what, right? So if I aim just at bodily goods, if I aim, say, in running, just at lower times, just at lower heart rate, just at higher step cadence, right? My body is going to transform positively in terms of my health. Like I'll get healthier, I'll get stronger, all those things happen. But if I aim a level deeper, and this is where a lot of people tend to go in terms of, but I can run for mental health. Like I can run to clear my mind. I can run to clarify problems and issues that I have and find space to make sense of it and how to move forward. So if you do that, right now I've got mind and body together. And this is a philosophy podcast, and I come from the philosophical understanding of like what is a human. A human is an embodied instantiation. So I'm not just a body, I'm not a body and a mind. I'm a body, a mind, and a spirit all intertwined together as one. So there's like three separate parts, but they're all the same. Paradox respecters, get this. Paradox disrespecters, good luck to you in life. Good luck to you in life generally, right? So if I want to bring all of me together, it means I kind of have to aim at these subjective elements. I kind of have to aim towards the spirit. I have to aim towards things like interest or passion or curiosity or imagination. These are words that people who've been listening to the podcast, they've heard me hit them over the head 1,000 times with them already. But this is, I think, when you say how to run, to me it's like how to run with your spirit in the lead. Would you say that's about correct?
Yeah, I like the way you put that. It's one of these things that it's kind of hard for me to talk about, unfortunately. But uh, but yeah, you know, when you a big thing for me is play. So so when you think about the approach that you kind of hear recommended for running, where it's so much about, discipline and a training regimen and everything like that. And yeah, you can make those improvements that you were talking about. But the question I always end up asking is, well, to what end? Like, why do I want to be faster? Why do I want to run farther, whatever it may be? And it seems like that's very driven by a need for achievement that is really culturally ingrained in us in all sorts of ways. A sense of tying self-worth to one's accomplishments, maybe ego satisfaction, bragging rights, whatever it might be. But those things are all so ephemeral and all also once achieved so disappointing. Um, and and you can always kind of say, well, the problem is I just need to run a little faster. I thought this would be fast enough. It wasn't. It's because I didn't go fast enough. Next time I'll go even faster, and then I'll love myself, right? And the problem is that moment doesn't come, um, when you're focused on outcomes like that. And so I think by attending to the inherent satisfactions of things, which is, what I call a sense of play, then the running is the reward, and it is a reward that is not it's physical, but not only physical. It's mental, but not only mental. And yeah, I'll go there with you, spiritual as well. I think, um, you know, that's the part of this that's the hardest to talk about. But because everyone's going to start asking questions about what spiritual means. But and I'm happy to get into that more. But I think, yeah, running is one of these things that can do it. There are other things that can do it as well. It just, for me, it so happens that running has been really good for that, right? And I think there are reasons. I think, I also came out of retirement, 15-year like basketball retirement to play in a rec league this year. And basketball is great. And there are moments in basketball when it feels pretty wonderful, but they're not as consistently available to me as they are in running. Uh, I don't know how much we want to talk about basketball, but yeah, I think running is good for it. And I think for many of us, I don't think I'm very unique in that.
I agree with you, and there's I was making notes on your book, and the first thing that I put down is what you put in. I think it's the on the back. Nothing to teach. This book asks only to play. This book asks only to play, right? And play is this important signal, I believe, of the spirit. And I'll spell out what I think when I say like body, mind, and spirit. I agree. Like technical definitions, I'm not super interested. Like metaphysical definitions, I'm interested in an instrumental definition because I'm alive and I live and I want to be able to act. I want to be able to act with these things in mind and have them make sense and also lead to better outcomes. So the way I break it down, it's like, well, if the body, mind, and the spirit, they're all different parts of me, but they're all the same part of me in a sense, right? Well, what are they all doing? The body moves. That's the part that just moves. The mind's the part that thinks and analyzes. And the spirit is my will. My spirit's my willpower to do what's necessary, to break through adversity, to not take the shortcut. When the body and the mind team up against me to say stop, the spirit is the part that says, not today, right? And I think runners really get this because when you're out running consistently, you're packing on miles, your body inevitably doesn't want to start the run, or when you do start it, it starts to hurt and say, stop this now. And then your mind comes in and says, why are you running again? Like, the weather's not great. Like, you were just out yesterday. You're planning on going out again tomorrow. Nobody else is out here run. Like, the mind and the body, they form this really powerful team in order to, like, stop me from going after something that's a little bit unmeasurable, a little bit ephemeral, maybe like esoteric, and the fact that I just want to do it. Like, I just have this burning internal intrinsic desire to realize something inside of myself. And when you say play, I mean, that's one of the definitions of play is just to do something for the internal satisfaction of doing it.
Yeah. And it's funny that with all of that and those moments you're talking about where your body is saying stop, your mind is saying stop. And then it's like, well, if your body and mind are saying stop, in what sense is this fun? In what sense are you playing? And yet, like if you have been there, you know that it is. And I think the reason it is that uh, it is kind of like congruent with who you I should just speak first person it's
Please.
congruent for me with who I really feel like I am, and I would be willing to call that the truth, like in the sense that when I'm running, it doesn't matter if I'm hurting in various ways, and I don't impose I don't feel like it's will in the sense of like it's imposed on me, like I have to finish this run. It's like the truest part of me just is running, and pain and suffering is just arising as part of that experience. But this run I'm on, this is who I am. This is where I like manifest myself in various uh, these various dimensions you're talking about. So So yeah, man, I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think that I think that when we are aiming and talking about the subjective arena, it's completely appropriate to bring in the subjective experiences. And ultimately, this is what a lot of people are afraid of when it comes to, you use the big T word, truth. They don't want to connect the truth to anything that's subjective, to anything that's feelings based, that I can't measure or record or observe or predict with any sense of certainty. And this is where exercise, I think, falls back into more of a technical activity for most people, where it is about, what do the measurements say? What do the measurements in the scale say? What is my blood pressure? What's my pace? Where did I finish the line on the half marathon I just ran? Like all these figures, which are good and are necessary, as people who have listened, to me talk now for a while know, you can't be a runner without the objective, right? Like that's impossible. We must track. Like I'm wearing my Garmin watch right now. Like we all like we track. Like we know. We want to know. We demand to know. But it's about a proper harmony or a proper balance between subject and object. And I think what your book is trying to encourage people and give them confidence to do is to, like, just lean into that feel, lean into that subjective part of the activity, and utilize that as a way to bring what you said, quality, right? To bring quality to my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we as modern humans are subjected all the time to all these ways that we need to uh, kind of give an account of ourselves. And so those accounts are often quantifiable. And so with running, where it's such like it's so easy to measure it in various ways, that, like, yeah, you post to your Strava, you do whatever, and then all of a sudden you have a way of saying, establishing your worth to someone else, right? To some onlooker, or some, very often some anonymous internet blob or something. But yeah, why? Uh, to me, it's really it kind of begins from uh, a fairly acute awareness of mortality, and, you know it, in a life which is going to end, um, what matters, like, in that context, what matters. And I think we discount our own sense of experience, our sense of wonder, our sense of delight, our sense of play again, uh, at our detriment. And I think it's an unfortunate observation that I feel like I've made about the world. And, I'm not saying that I'm above this in any way. I find myself succumbing to it in all sorts of ways all the time. But I noticed through running that I don't have to. And
Mm.
that feels like a lifeline that I've, stumbled upon, and, for which I am eternally grateful.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word free, like when you were describing running, like when you're running, and I do the same thing. Like, I'm not interested in taking this guy with me on a run. And from your book, it sounds like you run a lot of trails, yeah, as opposed to a lot of road running.
It's kind of seasonal for me. Like, I don't do great with the snow. And so, like, in the summer, you'll find me on the trails quite a bit more. But uh,
Yeah.
in the spring and stuff, it kind of just running around the neighborhood, more or less. Yeah, I
Um,
grew up in Oregon, and so, like, I never learned how to do winters. And so Montana is kind of like still scratching my head a bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I've been, I've now have been, oh my gosh, I can't even get the words right. I'm known as somebody who is a big preacher and proselytizer of winter trail running, especially through the snow. So I have a particular idea as to why it's important and what you gain from it. And it's certainly not to become a better runner in the sense of like my technical feel or improving my stride. But it's much more of that like willpower. It's much more of that conquering. It's much more of the noticing like I'm the only person out here and nobody else would ever think to come out here. That's kind of neat that now I can see myself like I am out here. And there's kind of a way in which the challenges we present to the muscles and to the bones and to the joints, right, into the blood, I think that can be internalized like into the mind and then into the spirit with a little bit of a conscious effort. Um, There's just a little bit of a little bit of an aside there. But there's a question. There is like a question,
The,
unless you have something you want to mention just off that
well,
quickly.
I'll just respond on the winter trail running thing because I
Yeah,
think it might reveal a little contradiction in my attitude here. Because when I've done it, I do it sometimes, and I generally, I'm really pleased with it. It's a really lovely experience, and yet it somehow again and again fails to like overcome the hurdle of like that inertia or whatever, or just
yeah,
the habit of how I think about the winter.
yeah. I
So
appreciate I appreciate that, and my like academic expertise. Like I should go up and run it. I got my book upstairs, but my academic expertise is like the creation of Canadian national identity through sport. Okay. And there is no Canadian national identity through sport without winter sport because they're the same thing,
yeah,
right? They're the same thing. And reading them when I was a grad student, that they were the ones that convinced me to go in the winter. They were the ones like these 19th century sport proselytizers who were talking about the bracing winter climate and the strong character that you gain from going out into it. They have all those romantic ideas of it, but there's one line, and I wrote it down here too because you have your essay on being in one's element, which you're talking about how you love the rain. Like the rain is you said you grew up in Oregon. It's like rain is right.
yeah,
Just like when you grow up in Canada, the winter is. It just is. Like unless you live in Vancouver or Vancouver, lower mainland British Columbia or Vancouver Island, which I don't count them as Canadian. Sorry, guys, you're not. You're
we'll,
not
we'll,
because we're all bound through the
we'll take
winter.
it.
We're all bound through the
Yeah.
land of like through the connection of land and experience and struggle up in Canada. And there's something about the winter that is a lot different than any other kind of season or any other kind of environment. There is no conquering. There is no conquering. There is no moment where you get to defeat winter. Never. Like I can defeat the rain, but I cannot defeat Jack Frost. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I cannot defeat him. The best thing that I can do is make friends with him. I got to join him. I cannot beat it. It can't be. If you can't beat him, join him. Well, you're never going to beat the winner. Like you're never going to be able to outlast it. You're never going to be able to endure it in a way that allows you to rise above it. And there's this quote from George Beers, who is this big time sport proselytizer in Canada. He's the guy who published the rules of lacrosse, like, and he's the one who was an organizer of the Great Montreal Winter Festivals, the Winter Carnivals, which invited everybody from around the world to come to Montreal in February and play winter sports and celebrate them. He's one of the big organizers. And he has this line about Canadians, right? And it's rather than, and I'm going to butcher it, so this is a paraphrase, but it's Canadians make Jack Frost their companion in sport rather than their master in misery. So the
Mm.
only way to get through the winter is to go through it with Jack Frost together on like a toboggan or on your skis or on your snowshoes, right? Or on your ice or on your skates or with the crampons on your running shoes. Like the only way to actually meet winter is to embrace it and go through it like with a sense of celebration, right? And this idea of eventually I'll get hard enough where I can conquer the winter, it doesn't exist. You're never. You can never defeat it. You can never conquer it. It's just such a brutal, harsh, and revealing season. And I actually like to think about the winter as this season of growth. And I like to turn it on its head. So when everybody else is hibernating, when everyone else is shut in from the winter, I'm out there growing. I'm out there pushing. And when spring hits, I ain't got no cobwebs. I don't have no rust to shake off. I'm ready to launch myself. That very first warm day, I'm going. Like, and I've
Yeah.
been ready to go and I've been preparing. And I'm like the seed underneath the snow that's just like slowly waiting, slowly inching up ever so closer to that surface to when the snow melts and the sun hits and I'm going to bloom, right? That's a little bit of my the
Yeah.
broad that's a philosophical broadside about the winter and sort of my academic but also like personal experience in making this mental shift in my brain. It's like, no, I'm friends with the winter. I'm friends. Jack Frost and I were buddies. We're buddies.
I no, I like that a lot. This idea of not resisting things, but accepting what they are, and then, you know, proceeding appropriately. It makes me think of uh, somewhere Alan Watts said that you see these monks up in the mountains in Japan, and that there's
Sorry,
some what's that?
my phone is connected to Bluetooth stuff. Hold on a second.
There you are.
I'm just gonna mute myself. Technical problems.
Should I keep going, or do you want me to wait?
Okay. Woohoo! Technology is so much
All
fun.
right.
When Bluetooth is connected to everything, everything gets ruined by Bluetooth. Because like I just got
Yes,
a phone call which took over my speaker, which I'm hearing you out of, and it's connected to my phone, which then started playing music, and it's just like a whole
it's okay.
cacophony of errors.
Yeah.
But that's what's fun about doing a live podcast. Like it's all good. It's all good. There's no editing. There's no cutting. We'll just
Roll with it.
move forward. So I just what you were saying just got cut off a little bit for me. So if you could just repeat, that
Okay.
would be fantastic. And
Yeah,
I apologize about that,
that's
Scott.
right. So, hearing you talk about making friends with the winter, it just called to mind this thing that Alan Watts said, where he said, these monks in the mountains in Japan, um, you think they're not cold? They're as cold as anybody. Um, but they accept the cold, right? That's the difference. And you see people all the time wanting to be like, well, like, I just need to put on like 7 jackets and 3 hats, and then like I won't be cold. And it's like, yeah, you're fighting that. You might be more comfortable. I don't know, whatever. Nothing against jackets, but there's something very different about the shift of mindset where you say, yeah, I'm going to be cold, and that's okay. Like coldness is just what's arising right now. And the suffering, as so often with these things, attends to the resistance, not to the experience itself. And I think, I think there's much broader implications of this. Uh, you can use winter as a case in point, but isn't that what life is like? You know, the resistance to how things are versus the acceptance of how things are. And you know, again, this is something I know. To the extent I know it from experience, because I suffer in so many ways because the world doesn't align with my ideas for the world, right? And so when I can accept that, I do better. And when I put up a fight, it's always to my detriment.
I I really appreciate what you just said. Um, it maps onto the way I think about competitions. And when we're talking about running and we're talking about people who are goal oriented outcome obsessed, like there is no relief. And you've made that point, I think, crystal clear to people. It's like, well, yeah, you can just run faster, but that's not good enough. This is like people chasing status gains and like, well, if I just buy the bigger house, I'll be happy. And it's like, no, you won't, because you'll recognize your neighbor's house is still bigger. And then you'll want to get bigger, like, and they're still driving a fancier car. And it's like, well, now then I just need to get the super yacht. And it's like, yeah, but Roman Abramovich's super yacht is still 435 feet. You know, it's like there's never a level to which you cannot continue to grow and aspire. And if you just think that that next level is happiness, then happiness is just sand that goes through your fingers forever. Um, so one of the things that we preach on the team when we get into these competitions, because we've got like lawyers and plumbers and entrepreneurs and all these different everyday normal people who dedicate 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours a week to athletic training, through a coach. And, you know, on the team, we put a great emphasis on, showing up, committing, punching through. But when it comes to race day, these are the words we talk about: celebration, appreciation, and the big one that's on our hearts and our lips is gratitude.
Mm.
It's like gratitude. And when you find the power to accept what is in running, but also then in life, boy, the gratitude just seems to flow almost effortlessly. So then my question to you would be, how does running, pardon me, how does running help me find acceptance? Or let me put that more bluntly, how does running help Scott? How does it help you find acceptance in a world where the things aren't as you would hope they are, and allowing you to accept them as is in order to then facilitate your own happiness?
Yeah. I, I think running is so good at this because you're constantly colliding with your own limitations, and uh, you can you can improve through training and you know make these marginal or maybe significant gains, but regardless, the experience is the same in that if you're running to your capacity on a given day, you find out what you're capable of, and what you're not capable of is more than you're capable of. I don't know. I think I might have not said that in the way it made sense in my mind, but you 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 run as hard or as fast or as whatever as you can, and you know the the experience doesn't deceive you. Uh, it reveals you to yourself, and so I think like this is maybe not me as my fullest potential realized, which is a kind of dream. I think this is not me as someone that other people are going to look at and be impressed by. This isn't someone who's gonna be a failure in their eyes or in my own eyes. This is just who I am. This is just who I am today. um, and so it's brutally honest with you. And I think there's something about knowing yourself in all of your limitations that is um, that is rewarding, in the way that seeing anything truly is rewarding. There's a kind of recognition that happens. So, it's a hard thing to pin down, hard thing for me to pin down at least, but it's a really instructive way for me to find out who I am, and often I think there's a way in which I like what it brings out of me, because it brings out a side of me that I feel um, I feel proud of is probably overstating it a bit, but like it feels authentic. Like I
Yes.
think authenticity is probably a good way to think about it. Um, I feel like the self deceptions kind of fade away.
Mm. I agree with that. I have nothing to add. You just said it perfectly. It just brings me back to sort of a question that I had an earlier part of the conversation when you brought up basketball. And it's been something that I've been thinking about too, because I'm interested in athletics. I'm interested in this sort of patterned motion, this gamified movement in its broadest sense as a type of a creative expression or a spiritual practice. But the more and I basically am just a runner too. Like I do trail running and a little bit of road running now. But I was basically just a trail runner for a decade. Um, is running the only activity that can get me to that brutal, stark, and honest truth? Or are there other or do you believe other athletic avenues exist for people who maybe aren't inclined to running or naturally disposed to running in particular?
I think running is uniquely good at it. Um, maybe I put like swimming could be similar, but something where it's really stripped of a lot of the complicating factors that go into so many sports. So, uh, thinking about interactions with teammates, interactions with the opponent, whatever role referees might play in this thing. Um, all of that is just, it all has to kind of align in a way to really reach those highest heights where running is so elemental. It's you and the ground you're on, and it's not a lot more than that. And I think there's a purity to that that just makes it more accessible there.
Hmm. Let me deepen that one because I tend to agree with you. And when you say running brings me into contact with my authentic self, with the truth, running has this way of revealing a deep truth that's like encoded into our DNA and actually into our physiological structure. Because if we take the theory of evolution in terms of like small adaptations over time producing large transformations, which not having to not making a statement on Darwinism or anything like that, because I think you could just see this idea of evolution being played out in so many different ways to know that as a process, it's a relatively true process that is a constant in so many different domains of our lives and our existence. I mean, physiologically speaking, we evolved to be a two motion species, effectively a walking species and a running species, right? Like our bodies were shaped powerfully by running. Like my foot, for example, I have a natural running gait built into the bone structure of my feet. I can also walk perfectly fine, right? So I built to walk, but I'm also built to run. Like the reason we don't have hair all over our bodies so we can sweat, so we can cool ourselves down without panting, so that I can actually run and cool myself down at the same time, right? Even our brains grew in direct connection to the demands, the high oxygen demands that cardiovascular activity, zone two or whatever, puts on the body. So the persistence hunt, right? Survival forced us to run. Running forced my body to change. Now my body is made to run, so that when I run, I'm effectively like stirring up millennia, millennia of information, right? That's encoded in my DNA. Like I think of muscle memory in a very interesting way. Muscle memory isn't just like the way my muscles remember how to do motions. I've taught it. Muscle memory can like bring me back to the heroic ages. Muscle memory can bring me back to my ancestors. It can bring parts of me that I don't even know how dormant they are or that they are even in part of me. It can be stirred up because now I'm actively embodying the true essence of what it is to be human, which in essence is running.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you're calling it muscle memory, but it's almost like a genetic memory
There you go. Let's
where it's like
go.
you can tap into this, like, the essence or the nature of the species. And, you know, you can come at it from that intellectual kind of side, but there is something experiential where you just feel like this is what the body is for. And I know like that sounds so weird to some people who don't run or, you know, haven't run in 50 years, but you know, to my own experience, that is the case. That it feels like this is what this body is for. And I think, you know, I think all the time about children when I think about running. Because when you watch children,
You had that great little one about the
it,
kids, the child running. They don't even know it, right? Like,
this is just what they do. It's how joy announces itself. It's the body at play, and I don't think that goes away. Or if it goes away, it's because you know we're living in a way that is somehow out of alignment with how we. Hmm, I don't want to be too prescriptive here,
it's like
but
could
should,
be,
right?
yeah, it's
Should
like could be, could live, or should
should.
live. Yeah, no, it's difficult. It's really tricky stuff. I love how you said, like, for people who haven't like run, they don't quite get what it means. Like, when I run, I feel like I'm actually animating a part of myself that was meant to be doing this. I got a message from a follower on social media the other day. Um, and this is someone who's just in their early 40s, haven't sprinted in 25 years, but they just mentioned in their training, because, you know, I just talked to a whole bunch of people about their training in the DMs, giving them encouragement and that sort of thing. Always coaching in a sense. You mentioned, like, I just been sprinting for the first time in 25 years, and I'm just going to read this guy's messages.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe how fun it was to sprint. Tell me. And then I was like, tell me more. I felt like a kid again, being able to move my body that way. It was very freeing. Also, it stirred something primal in me, like I was either chasing prey or being chased. So, the truth of the experience, like, you can choose to believe it or you can choose not to believe it if you're out there listening. But when you actively embody this stuff, when you go and you do it, there's a truth there that can't be denied. And when so many people relate the same kind of subjective experience from the same objective activity, okay, we're over it now. We're over something that, as you said, like, sounds like the truth.
yeah, but I mean, you're absolutely right about you know, the body's role here. Like it's so easy to, you know, get stuck thinking and to overthink and to like rule out possibilities because they don't make sense. And it's like, well, who cares if it makes sense to you intellectually? Go out and try it and see what happens. And so this text that you're reading, you know, like yeah, like that's the response, right? You feel like I'm alive and I'm alive in a way that, you know, like, okay, I'm a writer, right? I'm a teacher. I sit in this office a lot and I read a lot and I'm hunched over a lot, all these things, right? And I love them. I don't, you know, I don't do them because I don't love them. But there is something different about when you're out on a run and you're exactly where you are. Uh, and and you're not confused about where you are or what you're doing. And it's just that it like infuses you um, more fully, I think, than you know the reading and writing, which sometimes can be mental, uh,
Mm-hmm.
like almost exclusively mental. Like
True.
I can act like I'm disembodied some way, but you're never disembodied when you're running, and I
Yeah.
think that is why it's so close to the core of you know the person as a unified whole, because
Yeah.
it brings all the dimensions into alignment.
The objective and the subjective, finding harmony. Like, one of the ways that I've talked about athletics before, as it's the athletics or sports, or in the context of this conversation, running, is the mediating line between the black and white portions of the yin and the yang symbol. Like, that's the line. It's literally the one right in between that curves around it in the exact right spots, and that divides it properly but also can blend it properly. Like, to me, that's the true That's the true value of sport because it can't exist without the objective, but then there's no value without the subjective. And we all know that sports have this tremendous meaning and this tremendous value. Just you go to any pro game. Go to any pro game where the people in the stands actually care. They actually care about the result on the field of play. You'll feel it. You can literally feel that stuff coming through a screen. You'll get the
Yeah.
butterfly. Like sports are power. Everybody gets this. They're these like symbols of representation and these totems and like they're these deeply spiritual activities because they teach us about things that are beyond comprehension. Like people believe in miracles because they see them happen on the basketball court. Like
Hmm.
last second, like you're not supposed to be able to hit that 80 foot shot at the end of the game. Like when you're down two, this is a Hail Mary. And guess what? Your prayer just got answered. Like that's why they call it the Hail Mary in football, right? Because it's like just please make it happen. And then sometimes it does. And then you think, well, holy moly. Like I can't believe that just happened. Um and I think the way your book kind of just gets around this whole value of the subjective side of sport is a deep remedy like to a big problem of the modern world, which is, hey, you know that truth thing? It's only objective. It's only it's only objective. And anything that's not the objective truth, unserious, unimportant, the place of feels or emotions, like childish stuff. And here you are, and me as well, is like, no, the children are smarter than us, and we should just be playing. We should just be playing, right?
Yeah, I mean, what is this life about? I don't know. Like, it's not that serious of a thing. Like, well, it doesn't have to be that serious of a thing, you know? Like,
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. I get it. There's a couple things that kind of stand out to me that I think I'll curb for now, and we'll maybe hold on for another conversation because because you're a professor of creative writing, and I'm holding up a journal, right? This is a handmade kind of like for the people on our endurance training team who are becoming writers effectively. And one of the things that I've kind of dubbed 2025 as is like the year of relentless creativity. And I'm trying to, in a lot of my coaching calls and a lot of my content, empower people with the courage to be creative and creative of something that's like authentic and true to themselves. And we're here talking about running as a place to know myself and to strip away expectations and to be brought with the raw truth. And creativity is all about looking at raw truth and then fashioning it into some sort of a beautiful representation that other people can see and then know that truth. So I would just love your thoughts on how running makes you a better creator or how creating makes you a better runner, or what's the relationship that you see between the two and how is it sort of real in your life in either of the directions or all of the directions or none of the directions.
Yeah, I think, what I've found is that, uh, w- and this will echo some of the things that we've been saying already, but when I feel like there's friction between me and the world, and like I'm trying to force things, um, that it leads to frustration, and it leads to like, you know, emotional kind of spaces that I don't like being in. And I can want to like force my way through them, like, oh, if I just, you know, buckle down or push through, like I can make this thing happen. Um, and I contrast that with this kind of way, the state of being where things are, where I'm at ease and things are kind of just flowing without me making any particular effort. And I think, when a run is going well, like that's kind of the feeling that's happening, is like this is happening through me, not something where I'm acting upon, um, I don't know, I'm propelling my legs to act upon the world. And something similar happens writing, where it's like I take this book as an example where I said I didn't write this book. It just kind of, after enough years went by, there was the book. That kind of uh, easy approach to things. And so, to try to answer your question after that long preface, I think when my life is kind of balanced and I have time to run every day, and I have time to read and write every day, that they kind of support each other in that these are the things that are, my primary practices in life, my primary like, uses of time outside of family life, uh, that I put myself into them. And so when they're balanced, it feels like they contribute to each other in the sense of making me um, making me whole, or making me uh, attuned with who I am. Yeah.
And one of the big things that inhibits people to create is fear of reaction, and especially fear of rejection. Do you find that running helps you find courage in the face of that? Because I feel as if this is one of those biggest fears that everybody has, but nobody talks about. And it's the way that we can understand why people would rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy at a funeral, based on public opinion polls of what scares people the most, which isn't death, it's public speaking or sharing something they've created from their heart and soul, and being exposed to the reactions, the truthful reactions of other people. So do you see a connection there? And if so, how do you utilize that in your life to free you up to just continue to create?
Hmm. I feel like I would have to really give that some thought to try to answer on the running side.
Okay.
Um, because I kind of I know how I would want to begin to answer on the creative side, but I don't know where running factors into that. Uh, Creative side, I'll give you a very brief version of this, but I always have felt like I came to it relatively late in life, in the sense that, like, when my kind of core self identity was formed, I didn't think of myself as a creative person in any way. Uh, and at some point, through a combination of, you know, exposing myself to certain works of art, uh, taking certain doses of psilocybin and various things, I kind of was like, oh, I am a person who has this kind of interiority that you were talking about earlier, about
Hmm.
values and feelings and all that. And it took me a certain number of years to, like, really take on board the consequences of that observation and admit to myself that, like, I was curious to find out, like, what kind of creativity was available to me. And yeah, there was fear around, like, coming out as a person who wants to, like, write a poem now and then. Like, that terrified me. And I think I came to a point where I thought, I don't want to live my whole life feeling like I'm denying who I am, and uh fuck it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think I said fuck it, and I've been dealing with the consequences ever since.
It's kind of like
I don't know.
the consequences of not doing it become worse than than the fear of the
Right.
consequences of doing it. And one of the ways that I think running helps us with this process is it teaches us that fear in the mind is almost always worse than the fear of the thing, or of the actual thing. Like when you go out and you fear exercise or you fear the run because of the pain, like almost invariably at the end of the run, you're thinking, well, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And I'm glad I went and I did it. And the more you do that, the more you start to see, the mind might be just trying to preserve itself. The ego might just be throwing up these excuses as a way to not have to expose itself. But you know what I've learned from running is that I just try to scare myself off into never going for the run. And I always do. I always go for the run and I always feel better after. So maybe I should try that over here too, and we'll see if this pattern can
Yeah.
hold. And that's why I like to use the word courage, like the courage to create, because I do think you need courage. I think it's actually one of the most courageous things to do is to create anything and then share and then be forced to share it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you're making me think about the running piece of this now, and I'm thinking, yeah, there probably was something there. Because before I started to think, hey, maybe I'm someone who might want to try to write a poem one day, I was someone who said, hey, I'm just going to run a marathon. And it was one of
Ooh.
those like classic first marathon stories where like, people were like, you can't do that. You have to train. You have to like do something. And I was like, no, I got this. And
And how did that experience how did that experience go for you?
well, I was right in the sense that I ran the marathon. And I was like pretty confident that I could just based on hubris or whatever. But I did it, and I felt good about that. And I think when it was over, what I liked about it was really, oh, I just threw myself into a situation that I wasn't prepared for, and I like got myself through it. And so I know that's something that's in me that I can get into a hard situation, and I can, you know, I didn't I didn't win the marathon, right? That's not what I was doing, but I did it, and I think I hung on to that for some years, and then it was
It,
only later that I thought, maybe I could do it in a different way, and you know, be
it's that kind
prepared and have
I
more
think
fun with it, and
yeah.
yeah,
When I say muscle memory, that's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean by by muscle memory, right? It's like no. I remember what it was like. And nobody can take that. The beautiful part about sports is that objective reality of it. Like, if someone's going to tell you you didn't run the 26.2, no
right,
chance. They can't take
yeah,
it. They cannot, not, you can't take it away from yourself. Your mind can't take it away. Like, if I write a poem, for example, and I think it's a great poem and I put it out into the world, and every other person who reads the poem says, that is a bad poem, man. Well, did I write a good poem or did I not write a good poem?
yeah,
All I know is that there's a poem there. But then someone can start to be like, yeah, but that's not even a real poem, dude. Like, you didn't even follow like the structures. It's like, this is not even a haiku, man, or a sonnet. Like, what is this thing? And then they can like, and then you can think, well, I'm not a poet. Like, no one commissioned me. I didn't publish it like in a poetry. Like, and then you're like, well, maybe I never even wrote the damn poem. And that's not to say you didn't, but you can see the way that the mind and other people's expectations and reactions starts to make you doubt the thing that you literally just did. But in sports, no one's taken away your 26.2 miles. It's not possible for them to do it. It's like, I did. No. It may have hurt. The time might not be great, but I did the thing. And you're never, no one can, nobody, and not, and most importantly, if the person who looks back at you in the mirror cannot undercut it. They cannot take it away from you. And I think that's what contributes to this sense of when I run, I reveal the truth about who I am.
yeah, yeah, and I think you can really use moments like that in your life to kind of build a stable identity on in a healthy way, where
in a
it's like,
healthy
yeah, where,
in a healthy way for sure. And I don't know, I didn't want to bring this up, but I feel like I have to now. And it's not to be like a contrarian or to be a nitpicker, because I think people who are listening to this get that we agree basically on all this stuff. But in the how to run piece, right? You talk about play and self development as if they're almost like mutually exclusive, right? In terms of like, let me see if I can pick up the text here, and I could be wrong here. I could be wrong here, but this is something that I was very interesting to me, and I think what you're getting at is like the seriousness of the runners. They're also serious, and this is a serious thing. And when I do it, I'm learning serious lessons, and I'm really like seriously improving my life. And I think those people are wrong too, because they're working. They're trying to turn running into work, and work is productive. And when I'm working, I'm gaining and I'm growing. It's like I don't think so. So maybe when I'm thinking about running and self-development, I'm thinking about the way a child learns. And a child learns through play. And a child learns about themselves by testing the parameters and the limits in a play world. Like in a make-believe dreamscape that is solely meant for them to express a part of their interest, but then also recognize like where they can't extend that, where they've got to recalibrate, where they have to effectively like mediate the end of themselves with the beginning of everybody else. And so I'm not sort of here to nitpick, but I'm just wondering like when you're talking about the seriousness of the runners, I don't think what you're saying is you can't actually improve yourself through running. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with what you're saying there. What I would say is I would be afraid of putting the cart before the horse
Bingo. Okay.
in the sense
Perfect.
that if you pursue play, all kinds of growth can come out of that play.
Perfect.
But when you pursue growth, then then the running is instrumental.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
that's the trap I would want to avoid falling into because,
Perfect.
we have enough of that.
Perfect. No, I just like I didn't want to turn this in. I didn't want to turn it into a thing, but it's like we're just all around it. And I'm like, well, I have to kind
Yeah,
of bring
no,
it up because I'm
no,
like,
it's
it kind
great.
of came through a little bit in the text. I'm like, but he can't mean that. Like, I don't think that's what he. I think I'm getting it a little bit wrong, or there's just a little bit of a mistranslation or something on my part. Um, no, that's cool. And it just anytime you turn it into work, what you're doing is you're externalizing the motivation, right? And then that what you're effectively saying is like if I'm not playing, I'm shut out, right? It's like if I only aim physical activity at the body, I'm actually blocked out from accessing the deeper, more meaningful, more true elements of the activity that I should be aiming at and aspiring towards.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
That's cool, man. That's cool. And I think this is a good place to kind of land the plane here. We're just up over an hour now, so this is great. Again, How to Run, DIY Guide for Romantics, Scott Parker, this beautiful green and yellow book filled with essays, poems, reflections, really, really cool book. You could read the whole thing if you wanted. You could literally just pick it up and read a page or two a day. Really great. Thanks so much for coming on, dude,
Yeah.
and having this conversation with me. And I was just thinking about something you told me earlier about you're at Montana State University up in Bozeman. I'm almost finished reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. If anybody knows anything about those two things, kind of, and that I'm a historian. And you mentioned that there's a special collection now of I'm blanking on the name of the author, Fingston,
Oh,
right?
Persig.
First,
Robert Persig, yeah.
Robert Pershing, sorry, so Pershing. So now there's like a special collection of Pershing's manuscripts and letters, and I'm like, now I'm kind of interested because I'm a historian. So it's like maybe one day I'll find my way up to Montana and go for a run
Yeah,
again.
check it out. It's
Yeah,
worth it.
that's cool, man. Thanks so much for coming on, Scott. I look forward to hosting you again on the pod and just continuing to have these conversations and promoting your work, man. This is really great. This is really great stuff. So
Thank you so much.
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jordan. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed
Yeah.
the conversation. So
Awesome. Awesome.
good,
Okay.
good. I feel like I have an ally out there in the world in this.
We need the subjective spiritual sport people. We're
Yeah.
coming. There's a there's a vibe shift in the world, okay? Like modernism, objectivity, very cool. They've been ruling the epistemological landscape for the past whatever, 200 and 250 years. Yeah, it's over.
Back to the romantics.
Back to the romantics, back to the mystics a little bit.
Yeah.
Not too mystic because we gotta have ground under our feet, which is why the running is so important. The running is so important because it keeps us grounded, but like the time of the pencil pusher, the type of the person who's the only way I can prove something is by measuring it. Your time is over for now, for a little bit. There's a recalibration, there's a shift back to the middle. Too much objectivity. What is it? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Our society is Jack. Our society is Jack. So I'm happy to have another ally in pushing that pendulum a little bit back to the middle, to a harmony between the subjective and the objective. And I think that just means we overload people with the subjective for a while to
Yeah.
shift it.
We had it
So
correct. We had it correct.
yeah, so I appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for listening. One more time, How to Run, a DIY guide for romantics. Go out and get it. Go out and get it, people. All right.
All
With
right.
that, I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah.